Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Just a quick little video we've put together here with a very good friend and customer, Bill Tolpa. Bill, welcome.
Hi, Chris.
How you going?
Awesome.
Good, nice and sunny up there. We can see it's been a nice day apparently up there. Chad, how are you?
Doing well today. How about you, Chris?
Very well, thank you. Nice and early here in Melbourne, but doing well. So why are we on this call? Bill's been using some of our services for some time now, from the start of this year, so it's been a good 10 months. Bill, you've been using Exactbids and exactstats, which is great. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about Bill Tolpa for those that maybe are newer to the industry and haven't met you before and don't know you.
Sure. My name is Bill Tolpa. I'm calling from Tolpa's Auto Parts in Remsen, New York, upstate sunny New York today. And I've been around for, well, about 30 years now, I guess. I was the newbie that used to shake things up, and now I'm the old senior advisor, I guess. But a little bit of my background, I mean, I came from carnival industry, milk industry, and auto repair industry, and drifted into auto salvage. Been here for about 30 years, built the business from ground zero, and got involved with ARA New York, ARA National, past president of both. And then along my ways, co-founded URG, which is still in existence today, 20 years, and co-founded our PRP&E group as well in the Northeast. So been doing this a long time, and happy to be here and just love this business and can't say enough about it.
Yeah, excellent. So some history there, Bill. URG, obviously we've heard about the sort of foundations of URG. Who else was involved in that foundation group?
There was three of us that co-founded it. It was Ron Sturgeon, Ed Lacey, who's now passed, and myself as well. And three of us in the hallway talking about what we're going to do about the merger of back then was Hollander had bought Auto Info, and we tried to get some software enhancements. We're unsuccessful, and we said, well, shit, we'll just do our own, and we'll start our own computer company. And it's kind of how we got started. And one of the primary missions of URG was to create Pinnacle, although we didn't know what it was going to be called at the time, and try to create member benefits for the people that were involved that funded the Pinnacle system. And I'm very proud of the boys today and girls, and they're doing so well. And it's 20 years later, and I just couldn't have dreamed that would be as they're successful as they are today, and just makes me proud.
That's amazing. Three people started what we now know as URG, which is, I don't know how many members they've got now, but it's certainly
it was a wing and a prayer. We had no money, and I guess the biggest thing is we agreed to meet, and which is to get a bunch of auto recyclers in a room together 20 years ago. It was just a feat in itself. So the beginning was just agreeing to meet, and believe it or not, and then we said, well, we have to fund this somehow. So we all started putting in a little money in the kitty, and before you know it, we sent some invitations out to some other people, and obviously a bunch of people were thinking the same way we were, and got a bunch more money, and that gave us the seed money to start URG. And we were real frugal in the old days. I mean, we would go to a hotel room and try to solicit members, and the board of directors would put in their own money, their own personal money to pay for the room, and we wouldn't allow drinks. We'd only allow soda and water and chips. And we paid for it personally. We were afraid to use URG money. We didn't want to get caught somebody saying that we were squandering their money away. So a lot of the expenses in the early days for quite a few years were paid by us personally, because we wanted to save the money to build a computer system. It's quite the story.
Amazing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about one of the services that we work with you on, Exactbids. Exactbids, Chad, do you want to tell us a little bit about what Exactbids is before Bill tells us about why he uses it?
Exactbids is remote labor to remotely access your Bid Buddy system and preview the vehicles in the upcoming auctions for you, which would include filtering the vehicles, choosing the good and bad parts, choosing the interchange numbers, pricing the parts, and ultimately allowing Bid Buddy to work the bids up completely for you. You come in the next morning and you've got a good number of vehicles, a large number of vehicles fully previewed and ready for you to work your auction. You still work the auction yourself. You still log on to Copart or IEA's website and bid yourself, but the hard work of looking at the pictures is done remotely for you.
Yep, perfect. So, Bill, you've been using Exactbids now, I think it's since February. And I know that we've just increased the number of people that we've got working with you on Exactbids, and obviously the number of vehicles that we're previewing for you. Tell us a little bit about why you've enjoyed using Exactbids, what's good, what's not as good, and yeah, just tell us about your experience, I suppose, with Exactbids.
Our experience has been our experience with Exactbids been really good, and like with any new change, there's some couple of ripples in the water as you start. We had those, and so but like Chad said, it's remote services. The fellas are dialing in our nighttime, their daytime, and they're reviewing our bids for us at auctions. And what it did for us is it freed up a bunch of my time, because I was one of the guys previewing the bids. And as everybody knows today, it's more difficult to buy than it's been in the past. And you have to look at more cars than you have in the past. And of course, we've grown a tremendous amount over the last couple of years, and we needed something different. So we wanted to get some help, and we're sure where to turn, and said, we'll try Exactbids, and no contracts. Said if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And so, and the rest is kind of history. It's been about 8 or 10 months now, and we've increased from one previewer to 3 previewers now, and that are working a lot more hours and giving us a lot more pre-bids to look at. And I still finalize the bids, but it sure saves all that prep work in the middle. And so I can spend basically 2 hours in the morning rather than 10 hours the day before doing all this work.
Yeah, and I think one of the things there that you said, Bill, that's really important, that often we, and not only our industry, but generally speaking, is change. We don't do that so well often as individuals or as organizations, and there are teething problems. Let's be clear. We work with you. We develop. Our service isn't the same for every customer. Every customer has a different requirement, different needs. They preview slightly differently. So it is important that we fine tune it, and let's face it, we need to work closely so that we can make that right. So that's been a real positive, the fact that we've been able to work through that stuff over the first month or so, and then just improve it so that it meets your requirements now. You talk about salvage being more difficult to buy. I think everyone knows it. I'm in Australia, work closely with the recycling industry in the UK, etc., etc. Everyone's got the same problem. How does looking at more cars, how does previewing more cars, and in fact doing it properly, because the reality is, I think we're previewing around 165 odd vehicles a day for you now. Without that, how would you do it by yourself to preview?
Well, I mean, in the old days when I started, we used to go to the auction and raise your hand, and of course those days are gone now, and they were pretty successful. And somebody knew somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody, and you kind of got whatever you wanted because somebody knew somebody. And so those, with online auctions, those days are kind of gone, right? You're competing not only with other recyclers, but people all over the country, rebuilders and whatever, which you always did before, but now all over the world. So it's become a global market, and it's so you're competing with all of those folks. So what you have to do, in my opinion, in order to be successful, which we're doing right now, is cast a wider net. So we're working more sales than we used to work. In the old days, you drive this sale, you did one sale, and then tomorrow you drive to another sale, you did another sale. And so now with online, I mean, however much your brain can comprehend, and however many people you have in your staff is how many sales you can work. But in order to get more successful cars that produce the profit that you need, you have to cast a wider net. And it's virtually impossible to do unless you have a team of people behind you, depending on the number of cars you need every month.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving on from Exactbids now, which is, as we said, the remote previewing service that we offer to you, over to exactstats. And Chad, if you want to sort of jump in and talk to us a little bit about exactstats and what we're doing there.
Well, when we very first launched Exactbids, 18 months ago, we initially logged in and started to preview cars and realized that the very first customer's bid buddy settings were not optimized. And so I spent probably 6 hours, 8 hours at first customer and optimized the bid buddy settings and realized there was a need for that. And that's where we ended up launching Exactstats, where we're taking Excel spreadsheets exported from your PowerLink or Pinnacle system, and then we're analyzing your sales trends, analyzing your profitability rates, and coming back with settings that we're recommending for a bid buddy that are custom to your operation based on what you are selling, based on what's generating profit for you, and what your goals are. And so we actually log in and update the settings for you because they're somewhat complex. And then we can go to work previewing cars for you and end up with QCI scores that are truly optimized and unique for your operation based on the weights that are set up on the part types and the multipliers in the background for all the formulas.
Talk about change. I mean, Bill, back, I don't know, when you started URG or back in those days, did you have anything like that, like a bid buddy system or, any bidding system to do it by, or was it really back of the envelope type stuff?
It was, no, it was very sophisticated. It was a pad and a pencil. And of course you're outside, so you had to have a piece of plastic over the pad because when it rained, the pencil didn't work. So you had a clipboard and a yellow pad and a piece of plastic and a pencil and several pencils, because sometimes stick your head in the car and off the pencil go, So we did have a system back then. And of course, I was very fortunate. I had some good mentors along the way, so we knew we could figure our unit cost overhead. So we actually knew add up the parts and make our deductions. And that was very sophisticated compared to a lot of guys back in the day that just liked red cars. And so we kind of had some people that took us under their wing and helped train us. So we did use that system. And of course, when computers came out, it became easier. It did the math for you. You didn't have to do it in your head anymore. And more importantly, it was the request and the price levels. We used to pull all this stuff out of our memory banks and say, well, I think these doors sell for 200 or 100 maybe, or 50 back then. And so it's different today. And, with the price levels and Bid Buddy, it's a very powerful tool. And not only does it calculate your expenses and, adjust your cost of goods on a sliding scale, but all the price levels, if you maintain them, are all there. So it becomes relatively easy. And, of course, the boys at Bid Buddy also color coded it for simple folks, red's bad, green's good. And so it's a lot easier for everybody to kind of know if they're doing well or not. So
you're making me nostalgic. I have to say, I remember the days going out to the auctions here in Australia and doing exactly that, doing the calculation in my head and working out, okay, work back from there. This is what this car's probably worth to us.
Right.
In fact, the first time going, I flew up to Sydney because we had auctions in different parts. And we'd go up to Sydney a fair bit and look for cars there. And we'd go to the main auction there with Dad. And he'd teach me how to do it. It's like, so this is what I do, this equals that minus that equals, this is what you can pay for it. Huh? And
it's kind of simple. And you didn't worry about request activity and previous sales activity and all the other things we looked at today. You didn't even think about that. And if you remembered you had a lot of these in your yard, then you kind of didn't write it down then, but if you forgot you did, then you wrote it down, and it wasn't the most accurate. I mean, it got us to where we are today. So it wasn't all bad. And so, but the most important part was the piece of plastic over the pad so you could read your notes. So
I just use the umbrella,
especially in the Northeast. So yeah, or an umbrella. Yep. So, or an umbrella.
Very good. All right. So, but we've moved on. Obviously, we've got technology now that we can use. And as Chad said, Exactstats, we really fine tune and segment your buying so that you can spend the right money on the right cars. And that means sometimes spending more and other times spending less, or being able to spend more or spend less. And the whole idea there is that, the ones that you should be spending more on because there's more profit in them, you can be based on your numbers. But at the same time, sometimes we want to make it a little bit harder to buy some of those vehicles that are probably not generally as profitable, and therefore we want to chase them further. And that's where the combination of exact stats and exact bids makes a lot of sense, because you don't want to just buy the first one of those that comes along because it's there and you need some of the parts of it. You want to buy the right one at the right price, wherever that is. So that's the idea there. So you've been using now exact stats. I think you started exact stats prior to exact bids, which I think is a good way to go. Tell us how the fine tuning, the 3 tiers of buying and that segmentation has worked for you, Bill.
Well, I think we've done either 3 or 4 right now, those reports. I don't remember exact number, but somewhere's about that. And I think we did start with that first to take a look at where we're at before we knew where we wanted to go. And there's a lot of the numbers, everybody will tell you that, at least for us, it was like, yep, I knew that. Yep, I knew that. And then it was like, oh, I didn't know that. And so there's always more information in there. And, I get calls often about, hey, should I, hire somebody? Should I have somebody look at my numbers? Should I get this report? And I always go back, as you can really never have too much information. And, a lot of those reports are available in Pinnacle system, or you can create your own and with different report writers that are on the market. However, what you don't get is another set of eyes. And so, when you do it all yourself all the time, you're looking through almost like tunnel vision. So you're looking through this pipe, the pipe that you understand. And when you have somebody else look at this, it's like they have a broader vision generally, and they'll have some tidbits of information that you either didn't know about, or you forgot, or you just didn't recognize at the time. So, the cost of the reports are in the scheme of things for most businesses that handle a lot of cars, relatively insignificant, and the information is pretty invaluable, and it will definitely enlighten you some. So I would recommend it for anybody that does, medium volume, large volume of cars, that it's really a must.
Yeah. Interesting you talk about the numbers and the reports. Just did one here in Australia earlier this week, late last week, early this week. We did 2 sessions with them. But long story short, we often look at later model vehicles as the right vehicles to buy. And when it comes to exact stats, we look at your numbers, and it's not about, we do some benchmarking, but certainly the key thing is about what do you need to do with your settings to make sure it's fine-tuned or tuned into your selling patterns, if you like, and vice versa. And, that's a constant changing evolution, especially today with prices of salvage and prices of parts moving so frequently. But what we were able to identify there for that customer was, in fact, his most profitable vehicles weren't those late model vehicles. They were 02 to 09 SUV trucks, right? Or 2010 SUV trucks. And that's clearly his most, profitable segment of vehicles. So, being able to fine tune his buying to suit that now, and that was a total surprise to him. He thought they were doing well, but he didn't know. Whereas, we had that next level of, probably 2013 to 19 model vehicles, which were, he's spending $200,000, a quarter on those types of vehicles, and they're actually just break-even cars. But it's what he thought he needed to do, because that's what the industry does, buy later model, low kilometer vehicles. Yes, agree in principle, but not always the case. So this has really opened up that vision, as you say, by putting some different eyes on it. We've been able to demonstrate very clearly with the data that it's not actually always the same for every facility. We need to be specific. So that's been an eye opener for him and for us, to be honest.
Well, I think the auto recycling industry is so wide and so large, and cross platforms, from old cars to new cars, that each market is a little bit different. Each recycler is a little bit different, and your processing capacity is a little bit different between facilities. And so you really need to try to understand what works for you, what works for the guy down the road. And in the old days, if Fred bought it and he liked red cars, you raised your hand because Fred was on it, and if he could make money, you could make money. And and that might have worked back then, but it doesn't necessarily work today. especially when you start taking in consideration, towing and buyer's fees that are really what the cars used to cost just in fees today. So you have to look at what your numbers are, figure out what works. And then the other thing too is that we didn't really talk about is that every quarter, there's always some adjustments and some changes. And so I can tell you what we started with in the beginning of the year and where we're at today is significantly different. And so we made a bunch of those changes in the middle, and I suspect we're going to continue to make these changes as time goes on. And it's just how it is today.
The continuous fine tuning, I suppose. And I think, Bill, I just saw overnight, I think we're due for our next one, by the way. So we'll get onto that straight away for you. So, okay, Chad, anything else to add about Exact Stats?
Just that it is completely 100% custom. There is no cookie cutter approach to what we do. And the data drives the decisions, the data drives the settings. And so it's completely custom for your operation based on your profitability and your sales trends.
Yeah, and as Bill said, the quarterly reviews that we do, Bill, we've done 2 or 3 now, but it's that continuous tweaking, it's a continuous fine tuning of that segmentation, if you like, to make sure that your sales and your buying keep on moving in the right direction. I think it's really, really important. So, okay, look, let's finish this up. Again, Bill, we really do appreciate your custom. We appreciate your words today, your support. It's been great working with you. We've learned a lot as well, which is excellent along the way. And hopefully we can look at this relationship and talk about it the way you talk about URG in 20 or 30 years time. Who knows where we're at then, eh?
That's right. Yep, that's right.
All right. Well,
I'm going to hang up on this call and I'm going to get on my bigger monitor so I can see the numbers better. The laptop's a little bit small. So
for everyone listening, thanks very much for listening. If you need to contact us, you can look us up at autopartnersolutions.com, Chad at autopartnersolutions.com, and of course myself, Chris at autopartnersolutions.com. And we'd be happy to talk to you about how we're helping Bill and see potentially how we can help you as well. So thanks again, Bill. Appreciate it. Thanks, Chad.
my pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.